I guess what we're really talking about, because Jedi stalls have multiple dimensions to them, because you could do up stalls, you could do flat stalls. We're really talking about up stalls. We're going to start with that. Up like this versus like that, which is a whole other, that's a whole other realm. You can do them on front or side plane. I like to think of them in terms of, so if you think of them as like slots, there's like 5 slots where you can basically do them. You can do them with your arm fully extended, right? So that's slot 1 on the outside, fully extended on both sides. You can do them at the elbow extension, so like half extended. So that's 3 and 4. And then you could do them in line with your body here, right? So, uh, th so that's where. And then I just did them all on the front plane, but you could do the same thing on the side plane, right? Fully extended, elbow extension, and then if you could do it in line with the body is a little harder, I think. Okay, so 5 slots, 2 planes, 2 hands. Okay, the distinction of the slot, like with the arm fully extended versus the half extension. So how I like to think about it is, if you look at your arm, it's the difference between whether or not you bend your elbow to achieve it or your arm is fully straight. So like for this combination, the Travolta, so named because, you know, staying alive, right? So, I feel like the arms kind of move in that way. When I execute it, I typically execute it with a full extension, but you could execute it like this, right, with the elbows bent. So it could be either one of the 2 tracks. It doesn't have to be, or you could even do like one bent and one fully extended in either combination. In the beginning, I think what's important is understanding how to do the stall. There's a gazillion different patterns that you can do with your up stall. I think to start out with, the best thing to do is just start practicing the stall and trying to get it. Let's start with your left hand, because you're a righty. So, you know, that whole start with a more difficult hand. Now, there's basically, if you're looking at your front plane, there's 2 ways you can do it, right? You can do it coming from underhand, like this, or you could do it like this, coming from overhand, where it goes to the outside. So to the inside or to the outside. And the distance, like which slot you're putting in, is less important in the beginning than actually executing the stall. Now, to execute the stall, I tend to think about it as sort of this candy cane shape that your hand makes. As your poi is here at the bottom of the turn, you scoop your hand underneath as the poi is getting here, so that your hand gets underneath the head and you can push it up. And what you're really doing is isolating it to get it nice and erect. And then as it comes up to this point right before it falls over or goes over the top, this is the 0 point where it has no more directional force. At that point, you gently yank it back and change direction. Now, you don't have to change direction, but in general, people do stalls with a reverse of the direction as well. So this is the candy cane from underhand with my left hand. So at the bottom of the turn here, I'm going to start moving my hand, swoosh my hand underneath it so that I can get it up, right? So don't blink. It happens really fast. Okay, here we go. And here we go again. Now, same thing going to the outside, except, sorry, I'll do a better version of catching that. It's here where you're going to get your hand underneath and push it up. So you're still doing the candy cane, it's just that the candy cane is shaped like this, instead of, when you're doing the inward one, shaped like this. So this is your install, this is your outstall, this is your install, this is your outstall. Okay. One thing that can be helpful when you first start out is, I do not have a wall to demonstrate, but going up to a wall, or here, let's pretend this is a wall. So if you're doing it on your front plane, you can do this to practice. Make sure it's an empty wall so you don't accidentally knock things off the wall. you can use the wall as a means to help you, because you'll know if you're overshooting because it'll bang against the wall. What you're doing is you're short-circuiting the rotation, right? So instead of it continuing its rotational force, what you're doing is you're short-circuiting the rotational force by isolating it to push it up rather than letting it continue around the turn. It's the same thing on the outside. I think the outside might be a little bit more difficult. Now, the one other, I'd say, relevant theory piece that I put in there is on the front plane. There's this and there's this. I don't think there's much confusion about the way the hands are, right? But I think for the side plane, underhand is pretty. I mean, people generally do it that way. I think the place where it can be a little confusing is when you do the stall behind you. Now, you can either do this. Now, I'm going to open my palm toward you, right? You can either do that, or you can do this where, that was a very shitty stall, but what I'm doing is I'm curving my hand like this so that it'll do a stall with my, a very bad stall, this way versus that way. And they're different. I would say more practical applications are with the palm open to the side. But this particular combination does use that version with the palm going up like that. Oh my God, mine sucks so bad. But you can get a sense of what the move is supposed to be, even though mine is shitty. Do better than me. One thing to note is if your out stall is doing this where it's like kind of floating to the side and your hand is almost as high as it, you haven't swooshed your hand underneath the head in the U of the candy cane far enough soon enough. So you want to remember to swoop down so that you can push it up. So as it's going to the outside, instead of letting it float like that, you want to swoosh your hand under so that you can redirect the force upward rather than outward. One thing that you can start doing is these U stalls. So once you have the basic stall, you can start playing with these, where you're just going from one to the other. Whether or not you're going to like the elbow length or the full length, you can still, it's the same deal. I think the double out is easier than the double in, but maybe that's just me. Although my double in is cleaner than my double out. But, I mean, it doesn't make sense for you to try both until you can get each one individually. In my opinion. And that's what you need to know about how to do them. The rest is in practice.